Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Friday Lunch and Learn. Great to see some regulars, but also some new people here today. So thanks for joining. For those who are new, I am Gray Cause. I run Adventures in Movement and Breath. As the name suggests, I'm a movement and breath coach. And the idea of these Lunch and Learns is for me to share with you some of my colleagues and some really interesting people in the health and well-being area. And today is no exception. I'm introducing you to Panagiotis Kottas, and he is a fantastic coach. We met only a few months back, actually, through Patrick McEwen when I was doing an Instagram live with Patrick. And we had so much in common that firstly, we said, right, let's do a lunch and learn to share some of your ideas. But also what is really exciting for me is that next year, the 16th to the 19th of September, yes, those days are right, make sure I get the right dates, we are doing a retreat together in Naxos, the Greek island of Naxos. So I'm really excited about that. But today, Panagiotis is going to be discussing just one area of his coaching, and that is intermittent fasting. Just to mention a little bit more detail on that, because it's very, very on trend at the minute. So it's just getting a bit of an understanding of the background and of the science behind that. We will have time for questions at the end of the session, but for now, I'd like to introduce you to Panagiotis, and thank you, sir, for joining, and I will hand over to you.
Many thanks, Greg. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Greg, many thanks for the opportunity to present this. And for me, I feel very strongly about intermittent fasting and all the areas around health. So it's always great to chat about it. And guys, as Greg said, we can keep questions at the end, but as well, we can keep it interactive. So if you really want to kind of raise your hand, that's also okay with me. So let's very quickly start. I'll just share my screen. Just give me a sec here. So first of all, just a disclaimer, we're not talking about medical stuff. This is not medical advice. But we will be as well touching on certain of the benefits that are in the health space. Okay, so let's have an open mind about it. So first of all, a couple of words of who I am. So my name is Panagiotis. I'm the founder of Keto Track. Have been a coach for a few years, and this came about because of my passion about basically sharing the message and my learnings and my experiences, which I had for about 10 years. So I have been practicing myself intermittent fasting, keto, and have been learning about the health and about myself for the last 10 years. And Keto on Track, which is a nice wordplay, keto and on track, because our motto is get back on track, is a coaching program which helps people deal with their issues in a holistic way. And we may have a chance to talk about this later. So I'll jump directly into it. As Grace said, the chat is about fasting. And here I would like to just start by saying that life is a continuous cycle. So, and it's all about balance. And when we're thinking about fasting, most of us don't think that this is probably the way we have evolved through humanity for many millions of years since the hunter and gatherer times, right? So our ancestors, and not so far ago, we don't need to go millions of years ago, were not eating 4, 5, 6 times a day, as we, unfortunately, most of us do. So they were naturally switching between fasting and feasting when there was food availability or when they did not. And they were pretty efficient on that, because if you think that they were not actually able, or they would not be able to go and hunt and bring back some food, basically they would have perished, right? So I think we need to understand that, or we need to think that certain periods of absence from food is pretty healthy or part of our physiology. And for this reason, just to continue, is that also through fasting, a lot of religions are expressed, right? So most of the religions have certain protocols of fasting. And in this case, let's put a little definition of what fasting really is. It's the absence of a particular substance. So it might be not even food. Many people might need also fasting from social media, or fasting from too much TV, or whatever it may be for you. But fasting basically is more about balancing life and ensuring a continuous cycle. So here, the example in the visual is about the 4 seasons of the year. And as with everything, as everything rotates and keeps in balance for very specific reasons, the same we will now discuss about how we want to keep that balance in our daily meals. So what is really, again, fasting in its sense, and why we want to keep that balance? Because when we actually eat all day, we're becoming too anabolic, and anabolic is the time where we actually have nutrient surplus. So the body is signaling that it's time to grow, but many of us actually do it too much, right? So too much growing is also potentially not beneficial, and I'll talk about that. So we need to find that right balance also with catabolism, where catabolism is the time of cleaning up and recycling. So, and that is really two different points, but they blend very well together, because when we're too much anabolic, so when we give those signals to our body that it needs to grow, then we speed up our biological clock. And this is also triggered by potential excessive oxidative stress. And I think it's pretty obvious that our organs, which are basically most of our organs, are designed to process and create that fuel for us to be energetic, having to work overtime, right? So if we eat 4, 5, 6 times a day, and that's including snacking or whatever it may be, then our liver, our pancreas, our kidneys have to manage that load. And that is potentially too much work for them. On the other hand, of course, if we are too catabolic, so if we're not really eating the nutrients we need, then we are degrading. So we're breaking down muscle, and we're not really able to repair. So we're breaking down more than we're repairing. And this is very important to find that balance. So this is not really theory, right? So fasting and feasting, eating and not eating, and that this balance is really part of our physiology. And this graph, I don't want to go too much into it, but I just want to illustrate to you that this is part really of how hormones are working, and how our body and our physiology wants to come together in what we call energy nutrient homeostasis. So we want to have enough growth, but also enough cleanup phase. And the cell growth, so the left part of the picture, mostly is dictated by amino acid and protein sufficiency. So we have enough mostly protein, which amino acids or the breakdown of proteins, which in turn triggers a kinase or a protein which is called mTOR, and this mTOR is really what triggers, in sense, cellular processes which have to do with growth, proliferation, protein synthesis, etc. So on the other hand, when we have energy starvation, so we don't basically have food for a certain period of time, then we trigger other processes which are based on AMPK, which is another kinase, and it's a sensor of energy availability. And when that's not available, then again, we trigger other processes, again, which are critical for the body, which have to do with, for example, cleaning up, autophagy, and recycling. And these processes cannot really be triggered if we eat first thing in the morning, for example, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and last thing in the evening, for example, 8, 9 o'clock. So we need to give also our bodies sufficient time in order to really start showing us the benefits that we really need. Okay, well, let's move on, because many people might really say, why do we really need to fast? And I'll just go back to some of the Greek ancient guys that really were this, the starting points of medicine, where they said, okay, to eat when you're sick really is to feed your illness. And this is very critical for our society in terms of thinking, because by eating too much, maybe I will not go too much in the details, but we're triggering too much insulin, right? So every time we eat, especially if it's loads of carbs, then we're triggering insulin. And this insulin is is one of the strongest anabolic hormones which we have in our body, and is actually also one of the dictators of storing fat. So, and in this case, the body needs to react, and it needs to process the food and digest it. And if we eat, again, every 3 hours, for example, we're keeping our blood sugars elevated. The body needs to deal with that. And it causes a cycle which potentially can lead to a lot of medical issues. Additionally, we're not really giving time to our body to rest and digest. So rest and digest, or digestion, is something that takes hours. So if you eat something, even a little snack, 200-300 calories, then it's not something that will fuel you in the next 10, 15, 30 minutes. Digestion takes 2, 3, 4, 8 hours, depending on how much you eat and what type of food you eat. So too much food actually is a problem. And if you're afraid of wasting away, I can actually tell you that the longest fast that has been recorded was from someone that fasted for 382 days. So this was always under medical supervision. That particular individual was quite obese, but I think he lost around about 300 pounds without basically getting anything apart from water and electrolytes. So it is really simple, and at the end it means really the absence of food, right? So we don't need to overthink it, and we'll discuss how we can do it in the next slide. But some of the benefits that we have is that first of all, intermittent fasting will give you unlimited energy. And that might sound a bit strange, actually, but let's deep dive into it. Because for us, for every one of us, which are now in this Zoom meeting, we have plenty of fat which are stored on us. So even for someone who is thin, he has plenty of fat on him. And the reason the body stores this fat is actually so it can use it when there is no food around, and it can actually use it for energy. So if we're able to efficiently tap into our own body fat, then we unlock a very strong mechanism which will give us continuous, steady energy. And this will result into having no sugar cravings and hunger. So because we're also will have low insulin, and we will avoid this crash and burn effect where we have very high sugars after we eat, low sugars in a couple of hours later, then we have headaches, and this results into us getting hungry again and needing to eat, etc. What we want really to do is unblock our fat stores and have continuous energy. And by that, we also we will boost our metabolism. Again, maybe it sounds strange that our metabolism will slowly deteriorate as we don't eat, and maybe this happens if we were going past our limits. So, a few days or more, a few weeks of fasting, which is more, this is going into starvation. But really, daily fasts have actually been proven to boost our metabolism up to 3%. So that's really powerful, if you ask me. Of course, probably you've heard also about autophagy, and it's a kind of a cool word. And it's a very recent discovery, just 5 years ago, so 2016, a Japanese fellow won the prize for his research around autophagy. And there is a lot of hype in this space. But what does it really mean? Autophagy is a process which is always in running, even when we're in fed state, but in really tiny amounts. When we do not eat, we really boost up all the processes which are related to autophagy, which have to do with detoxification, cleaning up of old proteins, dead proteins. So our body takes those proteins and recycles them for energy. At the same time, through this process, we're creating new mitochondria. We're removing bad and dysfunctional cells. And really, this is the most powerful healing and cleaning up mechanism that we have in our body. We just need to be able to activate it. Not too much, but we need to give it, let's say, a daily maintenance of our body. What else? I mean, very important also in my coaching practice is that we want to have low insulin. So insulin is associated with most of the main big diseases that we have in our society today. And by fasting, we're actually, by nature, not triggering any insulin. So the body will regulate distribution of blood sugars within other means, but not really trigger insulin, which is too much insulin actually turns into insulin resistance, and insulin resistance eventually turns into diabetes. So there is a lot of issues down that path. And last but not least, we also have gut health. So gut health, or our gut, is every time we eat injured or damaged, and that's not nature, that's natural. So, and every day our body wants to repair that damage that has occurred, and this usually happens during the night. But if we continuously eat more and more, then our gut, in even if we eat healthy food or food that agrees with us, then we're not giving our chance to our gut really to heal. And there have been plenty of studies which have been associated with time-restricted eating, whereby if we eat during the day, so groups that have been eating during the day and groups have been eating at any time during the day, have completely different gut health and ability to digest. And at the end, the groups that have been eating inconsistently throughout the day then have been associated with higher risks of many of the metabolic diseases that we know of. So this is a pretty big list of benefits, and list goes on, but we can discuss it as well if you have any questions later on. So how can we actually start, right? So if you haven't done fasting, or maybe even if you're doing fasting unconsciously because you just, maybe as a kid or even now because you're busy or skipping a few meals here and there. So what's the right way to start? So, and I would like to break it down into two pillars. The first one is that it is important to take it slowly. So fasting is a stressor, right? So independent of the big list of things that or benefits that I just mentioned, still, if you're not used to it, you might have symptoms. So you might feel headaches, you might feel lightheaded. There are things that might not agree with you if you just start jumping to, I don't know, 20 hours fast, etc. So it is important to listen to yourself. It is important to pace yourself and realize that by fasting, again, what we want to trigger, or what we want to unlock, is to be able to tap into our own body fat. And that is a mechanism that is completely different and has a completely metabolic pathway from burning sugar. So at the end, we're talking about being able to burn fat rather than sugar in terms of when we're fasting. So this might take, for some people, depending on your insulin sensitivity as well, even weeks. So I've seen scenarios where it takes 4 to 6 weeks until people actually really become comfortable and have all the energy they want while fasting. So I would say the easiest way is to start your day maybe with a cup of coffee. Don't start immediately with food. Maybe give it 1 or 2 hours after you wake up. So for example, let's say 9 o'clock in the morning, and then go until maybe 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. And that will give you a good 12, 13 hours fast. And that should be sufficient to actually start giving you a boost and start getting adapted to fasting and to the absence of food. The other interesting point is that we're all different, right? So, and we need to adjust fasting to our lifestyle. So someone might be more prone to eating in the morning and skipping dinner, or the other way around, skipping breakfast and have their meals closer into the evening. Both are totally fine. And myself, I have actually shifted left and right, or both directions, basically depending on what is my interest at that particular period or my activities. So we always need to adjust it to our lifestyle. And that's also why fasting is so powerful. It's so simple. We just skip a meal or two, and as long as we have energy, then it unlocks so much time for us. So we don't need to cook, and we don't need to prepare things or think, oh, what about food? We just go on with our schedule, with our meetings, with our life, and it really unlocks time. So I think it's pretty interesting. The other thing is, again, going back to fasting being a stressor is that you need to listen to your hunger. And this has various triggers, because listening to your hunger means that we have balanced hormones. And the hormones are actually telling us when we're really actually hungry. And if we're eating all the day, those signals get messed up. So our leptin, our ghrelin, our insulin are not really working correctly. By fasting, we're actually cleaning up and giving an opportunity to our body to really come to balance, to come to that homeostasis that we talked about, and then really let us know when we're really hungry. And when we're really hungry, and then we eat. And that's as simple as it is, basically. So if that's for you now 12 hours or 14 hours or 16 hours, then we just need to listen to those signals, but we need to be able to listen to them. Of course, in the process of adapting, coffee or tea can be quite a powerful friend, since coffee suppresses hunger, it gives us some energy, and it can keep us going for a little longer. So especially in the morning, a coffee is pretty good. And I am a supporter of coffee, generally speaking, but we should not overdo it. But in this adaptation period, when you're starting to learn about fasting and practice it, then a coffee is always helpful. And last but not least, and actually maybe one of the most important points in order to avoid the side effects, is that we need to stay salty. And what does that mean? We need to get all our electrolytes. And usually by fasting, then by going to the toilet, we're peeing out electrolytes, and we need to replenish them. And that we can do by adding more salt while being fasted. And I could suggest, okay, get some electrolytes, which you can certainly do. But salt is actually the best electrolyte that you can get. So you can add a pinch of salt in your morning water with some lemon, and that is really all you need to really get going and have a great day. Salt has the complete profile of minerals. It has magnesium, it has potassium, it has really everything you need. And just keep it good salt. So don't go with a traditional table salt, which is potentially bleached. We want to have good sea salt, unrefined, which does indeed have all the minerals we need. So that's the one side of things. The other side of things is reducing our carbs. And why am I saying that? So what does the type of feasting have to do with fasting? So again, if you noticed, I mentioned a few times that we want to tap into our own fat. And that has, again, completely different metabolic pathway or how energy is created from carbs. So by becoming fat adapted, or to become fat adapted, we need to be able to utilize that pathway. So we could do fasting for a good period of time, even if we're not really fat adapted, but it will be more difficult. So if you're always running into sugar, then at some point during the day, especially if you work out in the morning or you have a stressy day, then you will feel that craving for sugar or for some carbs, because we don't have unlimited storage for carbs, whereas fat, for most part, we have plenty. So we want to become fat adapted by also reducing maybe slightly our carbs and increasing slightly our fat, just to help kickstart that transition to more a fat adapted mechanism. As well, we want to reduce snacking. Again, we want to clean up our body from too much insulin, too much spikes of blood sugar, and we want to keep our body running in a low insulin state, which is basically what we will be in once we're fasting. So having a more higher fat and lower carb diet will help us adapt faster. And those, I think, are my little tips. And I don't know if you guys have any question. If I run it too fast, I didn't want to overrun, Ray. So I wanted to leave also some time for questions and have an open chat. And I'm happy to do that, guys. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. I was making sure I didn't make any noises. Excellent, thank you for that. I've got loads of questions, but obviously let's open it up to the group first. So you can pop your hand up. We can talk. Kevin is popping his hand up there. Kevin, hi.
Hello there. Hi.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. When you mentioned about the 12-hour fast to start, did you mean going between breakfast and an evening meal fasting, or are you talking about going from the evening meal to breakfast? Because I guess you're not eating when you're going between
Yes.
your last meal and your breakfast anyway.
So usually I did not go too much into the terminology of fasting. So usually we have what most people call or know the 16-8, which means 16 hours fasting, and we eat all our caloric intake in 8 hours. In this case, I'm suggesting having a fast of 12 hours. So starting, for example, last meal 8 or 13 hours, 8 o'clock in the evening, and then not eating until, for example, 9 o'clock.
Okay, so that's so it's going over. The fast is overnight.
Yes, yes.
So you have some period of break. You'll then sleep, and
which
then
makes sense because we're not eating obviously while we're sleeping,
Yeah.
so we might as well use that time as well to count it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yep.
Paul is asking a question on the chat. She's saying, when you have morning coffee before eating, would you allow milk in it?
In principle, fasting means that you're not taking any calories. So anything that really adds calories is breaking your fast. So, but I would say in the transition phase, it's not so important. So if you add a bit of milk, I mean, we're getting what, 10 calories. You're not really messing up. So if that mechanism, or if that helps you go until your first meal, then I would say perfect, go for it.
Brilliant. I think one thing for me was the fact that by firstly 12 hours for anyone hopefully should be pretty easy to do, because I think often people think of fasting, oh, I've got to do 24 hours, I can't eat a whole day. But like what I really was great is what you're saying there is just take it slowly, start with that 12 hours. And the idea that you're not missing out on anything. So it's not about, oh, I can't have calories, I've got to restrict my calories. It's like, I like what you put in the introduction stuff, that it's time restricted and it's not necessarily calorie restricted. Not to say that you can just eat loads and loads of rubbish, but you're not thinking, I can't have that little bit of milk the minute. That just psychologically, I think if you start thinking, I can't do that, that for me is one of the issues that you have with like dieting, is like you're restricting yourself.
Yeah, I did not talk too much about the fasting, the feasting part of our life cycle and the balance, but that's totally right. Actually, for me, there is no, the word dieting when it is tied with calorie restriction is very bad and will result into some equally bad outcomes. So when we're really talking about fasting, we're talking about getting all our caloric needs in just a smaller period of time, right? So if someone was doing one meal a day, which is another popular type of fasting, where we don't eat for 24 hours and we eat all our calories in in 1 hour, for example, this might be a bit difficult for some to eat 2000 calories in a go. So then we need to extend a bit the eating window, but always we need to get our all our calories. And I would say not calories, actually, we need to get all our nutrition, because our body needs nutrients. It doesn't know about calories, it knows about nutrients. And if we get all the nutrients, either it's 1000 calories or 2000 calories, depending on the person and their needs, then the body will say, okay, I'm good to go. And then you can actually last a fast properly. So it's really about getting all your nutrients in that particular window.
I think, like you say, that's a really important point. I think there was a famous podcaster who I won't mention, who I think had got sort of like called out because he'd put about skipping meals, and everybody was saying you shouldn't be saying to people skip meals because it could lead to eating disorders. But as you say, it's not necessarily, it's you making sure that you are getting all of the nutrients. So you're getting all of your nutrients just in a maybe a smaller window. So I think that's a really important point that you make there. What is really interesting to me as well is listening to your presentation is for everybody who works with Adventures in Movement and all the stuff that we're doing, you suddenly got listen to your body, so listen to your hunger. Balance, that word balance always comes into everything in life, and also take it slowly. Things go wrong, I find, with exercise or with anything, is when people just rush into things and think, oh, I need to go for this and I'm going to fast for 3 days when they've never fasted before, and then it doesn't work. So it's a bit like, oh, I'm going to go and run, and you run for 3 miles when you haven't run for a long time, and it hurts and you injure yourself. So, oh, that doesn't work for me, I can't do it. So I like the way you really emphasize, listen to your body, take it slowly, and it's all about balance. It applies to everything. I'll shut up now, and there's loads more questions. Any more questions, you can pop it in the chat box.
I think Jen raised her hand.
Jen?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I was just going to ask how often you're suggesting that we might try this. It's not something you're saying is a sort of an everyday thing, if I've understood correctly. Is that right?
Okay, so I'm practicing it every day. So I have been actually doing fasting every day for the most part of 10 years. So I think I might vary my fasting window. So depending on where I am or what my goals are. So I have been fasting regularly from between 20 hours or 18 to 20 hours with 2 meals a day. At the moment, I'm doing 16 hours with 2.5 meals a day. But I think fasting is a type of period where we don't actually eat, so that naturally I think everyone should be able to do it for between 14 and 16 hours. Now, if for whatever reason you have a family event or celebration and you eat late one day or really early, it doesn't really matter. But as a regular, I think this is more a lifestyle rather than anything else. And I know there are a lot of regimes, other types of fasting where we say 5 days we fast and 2 days we don't fast. And for me personally, I don't find them, they don't agree with me because I think we were talking about establishing the right habits. Right habits in the right amount, we don't need to overdo it, but certain periods of fasting every day, I think is the right habit. It just, you need to find how long that window is for you.
Thank you.
And remember, Jen, you are fasting every day because every morning you get up and you have breakfast. So it's just about, as you say there, it's about the time. So in anybody, it should be able to choose that window of time. And it's just then doing it slowly to increase the time when you're not eating without restricting yourself, or without getting into that state where you really feel as if you're restricting yourself, but you are fasting every day. So I know Andy had a question. If you have a question, you can use the reaction button at the bottom, because that will actually bring a hand up, and then I can see you a little bit clearer on the screen. So you can do that. But I know Andy had a question, and then we've got some more coming in the chat, which is great. So Andy, sir.
Yeah, cheers, Gray. Yeah, if I could ask you the importance of the keto diet, because on the one hand, in your presentation, really interesting, really enjoyed it, and you opened with saying, that in evolutionary terms we have always fasted. We have gone between feasting and fasting, but I guess they were always eating carbohydrates. Hunter-gatherer tribes are very much carbohydrate diet. So, I'm really questioning the logic behind, in evolutionary terms, abandoning carbohydrates for energy and going over to fat, because that clashes with hunter-gatherers, does it not? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so this is you're opening up a big discussion, which I'm pretty happy to have, but probably maybe we will need to also have a second lunch and learn. But from my perspective, no. So it doesn't clash, first of all. So when we're talking about hunters and gatherers, I would say that most of and it's, first of all, how far are we going back in time, right? So the further back we're going back in time, people had available mostly animal sources for food, and tubers for basically depending on the season and the location they were, right? So they did not, and so if you were souther, you might have some fruit. If you were norther, probably just tubers. So as we're going now closer to around about 20,000 years BC, when the agriculture explosion happened, then people started to need to introduce more carbs. However, I think evolutionary, so since we have been evolved for a few million years, I think our DNA is mostly enzymatic based. So we're actually more prone or more able to digest better animal protein, which actually goes with fat, right? And that's why I think it's actually more natural to do this. Whereas now, when we're getting closer to this, let's say 1,000, few thousand years BC, then people actually indeed did not have too much access to meat, and they were mostly eating carbs or as their primary source of food. But I would say that this is mostly because of different levels and different access to foods. So richer people had actually more access to meat, and actually it was reserved just for them, whereas poorer people did not have full access to the same foods. So evolutionary, I think there were changes, but also different factors affecting that. And at the end, still, I would say people were it was part of their fasting. Fasting was part of their regime, right? So even Christians, for example, were very regularly fasting. And for me, I've seen also friends, or I have friends who are vegetarians and do a plant-based diet, and they're fasting, but they, out of discussions, once they go through the day, or if they have stress through the day, because they're not able to do that, to tap so much in their body fat, they're actually feeling a bit lightheaded, they're feeling a bit sluggish, etc. So I think I'm not talking about, I mean, there are different variations, and I've worked with various customers who really don't want to, for example, eat only animal meat. They want to introduce, to have more carbs, and I think you can find your level, but you need to be able somehow to train and unlock the fat adaptation mechanism. So, and you can do that with various techniques.
And how, if I could, just a quick last question. I mean, if you reduce your vegetable intake, how do your friends get the vitamins necessary? Because on a high protein diet, you're maybe not getting as many vitamins and minerals.
I totally agree there. So a keto diet is two parts. So I think keto has so there's some misconceptions about what ketogenic means, which means that you're eating only fat and you're only eating butter and something most people associate with bad outcomes or heart attacks, etc. But at the end, what we're trying to do with a ketogenic diet, which I'm also supporting, is that we want to trigger low, or we do not want to trigger a lot of insulin. So, or raise our blood sugars super high, at least all the time. We don't want to do that all the time. So if you have vegetables, so any type of vegetable, for example, lettuce, kale, etc. So all the type of greeny leaves, for example, which are packed with vitamins, they have zero or almost none effect to the insulin levels or your blood sugar levels. So this keeps you within ketosis very easily. So for me, what I always tell to everyone is have your protein with whatever source you want, mostly animal-based, but then have every day or in every meal big salads. So salad is part of at least what I consider healthy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll book you in for the next lunch and learn on that one. We've got another question from Gillian on the chat. How important is consistency? I think you answered this actually. The same hours, times of eating. So
consistency for me is not important. So as long as you're able to, so let me rephrase a bit. So the body or the mind has a very strong connection with the gut. So it will remind you if you eat day in, day out at, for example, 12 o'clock in the morning, it will remind you, where's my food at 12 o'clock? It's like very synced in. So even if you're not hungry, so it's just a brain function. So in this case, I would say just also switch it up. So don't be consistent every day. I mean, and I think this will happen by nature, even if you usually eat every day at 12, sometimes, you will have something else to do. And then you realize, oh, I now it's 2 and I did not have anything to eat. So, but I'm still okay. So it's more a mind thing.
Thank you.
With lunch, it's like I used to think, oh, I'm hungry at lunchtime. And then when you start doing, playing around with the intermittent fasting, it's like, am I really hungry at lunchtime? Am I really hungry at breakfast time? So yeah, I agree with that. And it's so nice to hear from Michelle, who is an ex-client of quite a while back. Michelle is asking any advice regarding reducing stressors while fasting. Loads of advice on that one. I would have thought, how can you reduce the stress when fasting? Does the stress come from fasting or other things? What would you advise?
So when we're talking about stressors, we're talking about, Michelle, can you give me an example? So stressors because of fasting, or stressors generally, life stressors, like work stress or so? And yeah.
Well, it's more in relation to the menopause. And I found that when I fast, I have more hot flushes. And I understand that that is related to the fasting because of the stressors. So I wondered if there's a way of combating that so that I don't suffer so many.
So if I may ask, how many hours do you usually fast for?
I usually do between 16 and 18 per day.
So menopause and generally periods affect the fasting. So we have higher progesterone in the latter part of our cycle. So in that period, it's best, well, to listen to your body and don't overdo it with fasting. In the first part of the cycle, I think it's I have not run across a case where someone is or a lady is has issues with the fasting period. I would say around about 16 hours is a sweet spot where everyone, independent of the fasting or of the type of cycle, then everyone is feeling fine. As we go more into the 17, 18, 19 hours, I think then it's better to hear to your body and just basically break your fast. So if you want to keep fasting, just to give some nutrients or some basically signal of abundance to your body, maybe you can want to have a bulletproof coffee, for example. So there are techniques where you can break your fast, but still keep in a semi-fasted state. So either have a bulletproof coffee, basically is butter with coconut oil, MCT oil, which tastes pretty good actually. And because it's mostly fat, then it doesn't really trigger any insulin and it keeps you in that fasted state. The other way is you could have a salad maybe, which does not have, again, too much protein. So protein is one of what we were saying before about mTOR, so stimulates mTOR, so it will raise also insulin. So maybe you want to have a salad which, again, with some olive oil, and then that also keeps you in a semi-fasted state. So you can break your fast, but still keep going until maybe you have your proper meal. Yeah, try it out.
And just relating to that, if I wanted to try a longer fast of maybe 36 hours or so, do you think that those the hot flashes, the hot flushes will dissipate any, or are they likely to get stronger or more frequent?
Okay, so depending on why the hot flashes exist, but I would say that the independent of the root cause or potential discomfort we have, I'm putting it very generically, fasting is eating is one of the main sources of inflammation in our body. Wow. So, and when we're avoiding to eat, we're reducing inflammation. I don't want to go too much in the keto and carb diet, but actually fasting is the ultimate elimination diet, if we can say that. And you will feel basically a lot of the symptoms being alleviated after a 3 to 4 day fast. So I do in my programs, I do always, well, not at the start, but I think around 15 weeks in the program, we do always a 3 to 4 day fast, and everyone is super afraid of that they will waste away, but at the end they all feel super great after they finish it, and they look forward to doing it again. So as long as you prepare properly and you break your fast correctly, I think it's super great.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Any more questions? So either in the chat, or if you use the pop your hand up if you've got any more questions. Andy's back, or is that from earlier?
Yeah, no, I've got another question. Just at the tail end there, you mentioned a longer fast, and Michelle was saying as well. I've never attempted a longer fast, but I have gone to 2 meals a day, and it's made a big difference with various things. But I'd never gone, more than say a 24-hour fast. Other than maybe if I was forced to do that through illness, yes. But doing that length of fast, extending to say 2 days or 3 days, do you have any advice around that? How just basically how you would approach that? Whether it would be you would allow salads, would introduce salads, or just any general advice around that?
Yeah, sure. So very quickly, what we want to avoid is basically, or we want to get into our restart. So once we're doing really fasting, we will have a higher level of ketones, which means that really we're going into this fat burning mode. What we want to do as soon as we start the fast is to go directly into this mode. So you don't, if you're not used to basically, if you're not fat adapted, it will take 2 or 3 days until your body actually gets used to use fat, which means probably if you're doing it for first time, you will get headaches, you will not feel good, and at the end you'll even maybe break down some muscle for energy. And you will not get really the benefits of the 3-day fast. You'll break the fast and you'll feel worse than when you started. So you want to start going directly into your fast, being in ketosis and being fat adapted, which means we slowly lower. Maybe I usually do a 4-day protocol where we lower our carbs until we really go 2 meals a day, and we have a certain levels of ketones. So usually above 0.5. And then we're saying, okay, we're now ready. Our body's primed. We're using fat for energy, and as soon as we stop completely the food, then we will just continue using that, and we slowly see a drop of blood glucose and an increase of our ketones, while we're still having super good energy. So you need to take it slowly. I would say 1 week. 5 to 7 days, especially depending on where you are, depend on carbs and fat levels.
That's interesting. Yeah. And is there anything that sort of jumps out at you? If you do that for a week, that tells you are ready to fast. You mentioned there, a numerical level of ketones there. Is there any sort of measure you have?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I think you went on mute for a sec, or my internet is
Yeah. My question was that if to prepare yourself for the fast, you're running down carbs, you're switching to ketones. Is there anything that sort of tells you body-wise, constitutional-wise, that you're ready for your fast? Your body has adapted to a certain extent to the ketones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so apart from obviously measuring your ketones, so I usually have a little device which measures your ketones in a similar way as you measure your glucose. But basically you should feel your energy level. So if you can go easy to 20 hours, so maybe the last day you want to try 2 meals a day in a 20-hour window. If you can achieve that, let's say on a Thursday, then you feel good, then on the next day, maybe Friday, you have 1 meal a day, and you just in the evening. And then if you can go that level and you feel good again, then just next day, just go for it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Very
interesting.
We definitely need to set up another lunch and learn because there's so many questions coming in. Paula says thanks. She's had to go back to work. It's 2 o'clock. That has gone really quickly. Panagiotis, I know we've talked about intermittent fasting, and I know that is not just the only area you work on. So if you could just give us a little bit of a brief outline of your other work and the other things you do, and how people can get in contact with you if they want more information.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the question, Grace. So yes, indeed, I think fasting is super important and part of a healthy lifestyle. But in Keto on Track, we're looking really to a holistic way of getting back on track and being, I think, the best version we can be. So really thrive as human beings. And for me, we have 5 pillars where we're working with all our clients. So first of all, we have nutrition and keto. And this is, I'll have a slide for that in a sec as well, which is nutrition is really important and something that people are always keen to have. So, or to start with in any transformation they do. We have fasting, which is about balancing nutrition and absence of food. Then for me, very important, and actually I'm also changing a bit my mind. I think it's even potentially more important than what we eat, is that we need to sleep properly, and we need to be able to breathe, what Gray is so great at, and reduce our stress levels. So really a lot of us is struggling with sleep, and we are looking with all our clients into that as well. And not only duration of sleep, but really deep quality sleep. Then we have biohacking, so techniques which we can apply into our daily life to improve and enhance performance. And what I say, mostly be able to connect with nature, even if we're not really outside in nature. So nature is the absolute healer, but if we're always, in the house during COVID times, etc., then we need to also have and apply techniques and hacks to get the same benefits. And obviously fitness is a must. I mean, I would not say fitness, generally speaking, movement, exercise is key for health and longevity. And yeah, so where you can find that, so we have basically 4 and one more by hiking 5 programs or series, so it's 6 weeks programs, each one of them, which we go through, and we have in a simple way objectives every week, challenges, and basically coaching, one-to-one tailored made programs specifically for you. And this might be for people who have health issues, or people who are interested to try out something new into their lifestyle, and just take a proactive approach to their health. So you can contact me through our site, which is ketontrack.com, Facebook, Instagram. We're very active there, and I'm always happy for a chat.
I've just popped your email as well into the chat. So pana@ketontrack.com is the email address if you want to contact there. And also, as I say, we're doing a retreat in Naxos next year, 16th and 19th of September. That's the right dates, yeah. And I'll just pop the link. So if you go to my retreats page, if anybody wants more information on that, it's listed on there. We're just finalizing the program and everything, so we haven't got the full page up there, but there's a little box you can log your interest, and you'll be first on the list to get details on that retreat. Thanks so much, Panagiotis, for that. I know, sorry we've gone over everyone, but it's such an interesting topic and such a big topic. I'm sure people will want you back for more and some more questions. Next week, I've got Louise Herzog coming along. She's just trained as an Oxygen Advantage coach. She's come up with a really interesting 1-minute recovery that she's using to sort of like measure your fitness levels. And I wanted her to share that with you. And then on the 5th of November, Adam, who is still on here actually, who is GB team. There he is. There's Adam. He's going to chat about his training for the GB Olympics team for Tokyo 2020. So make sure he's having his lunch there as well. Make sure you are join on the 5th of November to meet Adam. Panagiotis, thank you once again for that fantastic presentation. Thanks everybody for joining. And if you do have any questions, then do feel free to email Panagiotis directly or email me and I'll send that on to him. But yeah, great. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. And thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.